if this ever happened in Miami, it would be a total disaster. Because we're peaceful people, they trample us. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any more questions?
My name is Frank Roberts, and I'm the guy that put on the Medicare
the Shine Show.
Orientation.
The Shine Show.
Yes. Well, those of you who have been here this evening, and I didn't have to come here at all, and I wanted to be able to talk to those of you that we see, and by the way, we've got over 100 people that have needed some assistance out of the groups that we've talked with. The point is, it would appear in the conversation that the HMOs will be terminating in Hernando County at the end of this year. I'm not debating, and I don't want to even get into good, bad, or indifferent, because I think that HMOs are fine. I don't have a problem with them. The point of this, and why I finally decided to come up, was to say that we are still, the Shine people are still available as counselors to assist you in whatever manner and means that we can do. And again, I will tell you that you don't have to sell your house and all your jewelry and your cars to get some assistance. That's not true. There are different programs, and we're here to help you. So, you know, go to Tallahassee, go to Washington. I think I was impressed with Karen Thurman's idea of, get to your kids. I mean, I've got 3 in 3 different states, and most of you probably have the same thing. So absolutely, do all of these things. But December the 31st is coming up. Do not disenroll from your HMO. Let them kick you out. Because when that happens, you do have medical insurance. You will be automatically re-enrolled back on your Medicare program. True, there are gaps, okay, but you will have medical coverage. So, again, it's an offer. I think most of you probably have our literature. We'll be more than happy to help you. Thank you very much. We were very quiet during the whole evening.
Thank you. Okay, Phil.
My name is Phil Coppola. I'm one of the spokespersons for HMOs for Florida. The main subject with letting this man talk from Shine means nothing. He meant nothing in 2 meetings. He didn't mean nothing here. He talks nothing but nonsense. He wouldn't help none of you. All he wants to do is sell insurance. We need to go forward. And to go forward, we got to climb a step, each step at a time. We're going with Florida representatives, hoping that they will get through the federal government. If the federal government funds more money, you will see more than one HMO in Hernando County. The name of the game is money. There is plenty to fund, but you got to let them turn it loose. Having these meetings are going to accomplish a lot. We just have to keep going forward. I wrote a letter to Karen Thurman. I wrote a letter to Bill Nelson. I only received 3 letters in response to my letters back. I can get all the petitions we want. I got 15 pages full. But that's not going to help the situation here in Hernando County. We have to go up the chain of command. We're doing that now with these lovely women. And now, hopefully, with Karen going forward and going to Tallahassee and to Washington, we can get our point across. We need federal funding. And that's the main issue here. Florida can try to help us, but the government is the only one who is going to solve this very terrible situation. And that's where we're at. Karen, I have one question for you.
Oh, she just took
left.
She'll be right back.
Would it help any to bring back the Medicare reform? Can anybody answer that? No, only Karen can, huh?
Okay. Well, Karen will be back in a few minutes. You can ask that question again.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.
My name is Clement Seifert, and I attended the meeting at the fairground. I attended the meeting at the fairground, and at that meeting we got cards to fill out from Shine if we wanted to talk to them people. And they would take care of us. The Shine representative is here again tonight, I see now. So I would like to know from him why I was never contacted. I think the Shine is strictly a insurance outfit and a representative of the Bush administration in Tallahassee, and that's what they amount to.
Well, he has a question for Shine, Tom.
First of all, you will be called because we have 10 people that were setting up phone banks. We had almost 500 cards that we had to go through. So that's item one.
Sir, how long has that been?
Excuse me, if I may finish.
How long has that been?
If I can finish, I'd appreciate it. The second part of it is...
Oh, I'd like to...
that's fine. I'll be glad to listen to you. The second part of it is we are part of the Department of Elder Affairs. We are volunteers, and we do not sell insurance whatsoever. As a matter of fact, we are not allowed to be a volunteer if we have an active insurance license. So we have nothing to do. We also are bound by confidentiality laws under the state, and we sign these certificates. So if we convey any information to any insurance companies and so forth, we can be fined and put in jail. Now, I'm sorry, you had another question.
You have quite a gift of gab, don't you?
No, sir, but I do have the facts.
Certainly seem to be able to put it out pretty good. It's probably in the long run. I'll talk in the long run. And I'll go along with your stuff. But you just do what you want to do. You're not doing a very good job.
Well, sir, we recovered $158,000 for folks who came to see us last year, and that was only with 3 people. So we really feel that we do help folks.
Excuse me, Tom, but we have some other people that haven't had their chance yet, so let's... Okay.
My name is William Potts. I'm from Hernando County. I've been down here about 10 years. And when I heard about this meeting here tonight, I says, what's it going to be, another farce like the one they had over on 41? And I was told and assured when I came here that it wouldn't be anything like that. Now, why don't you insurance people get the hell out of here? Now, we're involved with HMOs. Now, I don't have an HMO. I'm 76 years old, and I don't have one. Because I got sick and tired of a doctor telling me who I had to go to and that I wasn't sick. I've been sick. I've had my time. I spent 30 years in the military. The military told me that I can't be taken care of because they don't have the funds. And besides, when they got ready to operate on me, they said, we can't do it because you're retired. Okay, fine. I took care of all that myself. I come down here to Hernando County, and I was bilged out of $200,000 when I got here. Plus, I got a piece of junk for a house that I'll give to somebody if they take over the mortgage. And so it's no problem. I caused those problems myself. But the thing is, we listen to everybody, politicians and all. Now, politicians are fine. They talk and talk and talk. And all of a sudden you get, send us $50 so we can lobby. Now, if the politicians need a lobbyist to talk for them, what the devil are they doing up there? Besides going to the Caribbean and going out to jaunts to China and stuff like that. Now, why should we have to contribute our funds, our own money, to get a lobbyist to speak for HMOs in Congress? What's the matter with the senators and the congressmen that we voted for? What's the matter with the presidents and the vice presidents and the governors of the cities and the states? Why do we have to have a lobbyist to stand up there and shoot the breeze like I am and get all worked up? I've listened to people in here. A couple of times I was ready to get up and really scream because all I could listen to was something, the next thing to communism.
Well, do you have a question?
I'm strictly against that.
Excuse me.
I'm strictly against socialism.
Excuse me, but do you have a question for our panel? You've made your statement. Do you have a question?
Okay. My statement is, let's go back there and do something. Don't ask for money for lobbyists. Do it yourself. That's what you're paid for. That's what you're
Okay, we're not asking for money for lobbyists.
Are you going to do it? I didn't say they were lobbyists. But
okay.
Hey,
okay.
I'm losing money.
All right, I think they got your message. You want them to take action. Thank you. Thank you.
Is Karen through? Is Aid still here? Are the aides great?
Yes,
Thank you.
Karen
The
is
question
back.
probably is going to pertain basically to Karen here. I called up AARP, and as the lady before who said she's 56 and cannot get health insurance, she's absolutely right, because like I said, I've been discriminated so many times against insurance. Now, when I called up AARP and I said, listen, I'm over 50 years of age, you have these policies. I'd like to get one. They said, sir, we're sorry, you're not 65 yet, and we cannot sell it to you in the state of Florida. I said, well, what state do I have to be in to sell it to? She said, and I did this morning, by the way, there are 19 states that I'm able to get an insurance policy under the age 65, meeting the qualifications of AARP over 50. I don't think it's fair. Here again, I'm in one great nation called the United States. I am being segregated against. Why? The insurance commissioner, he doesn't make this decision by himself. I don't like the rat right now, but he's not in this pool of water by himself. My legislators, my senators, give this guy the green light on his decisions of what to do. If you don't, how's this guy up in his office by himself? I don't understand some of my systems.
What's your question, Tom? We're losing the audience and we want to wrap up.
We need to find out why they can't let more insurance companies drop down the age of 50 for the disabled people, like AARP, which is a little more higher, but at least it's an alternative. Right now, the insurance companies are entirely too high. And this is a major thing here. Cost, efficiency, and the right to go to what doctor you want to go to.
Okay, that's the question. Do you want to wind up, Marie? Okay.
We hope all the information given you has been helpful and all your questions have been answered. Maureen and I will not let this be the last time we will be together. We will keep you informed. We will not let this crucial issue die. We will speak for you. Please sign our petition letter. We will hand deliver it to our governor. And remember, folks, we still have the power to vote, or will they take that away from us too? Thank you.
Good night.
Good morning and welcome to the Hernando County Board of County Commissioners meeting of August 8th, 2000. This meeting is called to order. Please rise. The invocation this morning will be given by Richard Johnson, one of our staff, and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Richard?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Please join me in prayer. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for a beautiful day today in Hernando County. We thank you for the freedoms we enjoy as citizens of the United States, and we ask that you'd always bring to our minds the sacrifices that brought us those freedoms. This morning we pray for all of our leaders throughout the country, that they might have wisdom, and this morning we pray for our commissioners that you would give them patience and discernment and wisdom as they make the decisions that affect us all, and may they all be for the betterment of our citizens. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Richard. Appreciate it. I hope not. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. There has been one addendum since the publication of the first agenda, and it's an item regarding the Medicaid budget. Are there any additional addendums or additions to the agenda, Mr. County Administrator?
No, Mr. Chairman, there are none.
Mr. County Attorney?
No, sir.
Thank you. Then a motion would be in order for the approval of the agenda.
So moved. Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Any further comment? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. We're now going into the citizens' comments portion of our agenda. And as we've indicated before, we want our citizens to discuss with us issues of importance to them, but keeping in mind the place and the time, we ask that we have decorum in the room. With that, anyone wishing to comment? Yes, ma'am, the lady in the rear. Give us your name, please, for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm Elsie Howell, and I'm from the Deer Haven State in northeast section of Hernando County. Why I'm here today is that I received a letter from the Hernando County about the fire. I also called the numbers, and they told me that the first number was on vacation, the second number I had to recall to get someone to talk to. I talked to Mr. McIntyre about the matter of the fire tanks in our precinct. On the back of it, it says, this letter says, on the reverse side we would have a map. There is no map. I'd like to know where the boundaries are drawn and where and why. We have worked hard for our community to raise money and build that little firehouse out there for our volunteer firehouse. We went out of our way when no other person in Hernando County would even think of building their own firehouse. We built it. It's there. Now they want to incorporate us into countywide. I want to know, the public hearing for this is supposed to be August the 22nd at 10 a.m. And Mal also has training for the supervisor election on August the 22nd between 9 and 12. This meeting that you have called is at 10 a.m. It doesn't correspond with me.
Ma'am, I think that meeting has been changed to a later date.
Well, they haven't let us know. They have not let us know anything, and it should be so forth.
Ms. Howard, since our conversation, the meeting has been changed to September 12th. A new notice is coming out. A new notice will be mailed to you with a map.
Also, I would like to know why we didn't get the map to originally. I talked to Alice, and Mr. McIntyre said he would get Fire Chief Nicholson get in touch with me, but he must be out west fighting fires because he never called me back. I cannot sit at the telephone waiting for calls all day and all night. I'm a volunteer for Hernando County and have been since I moved here and still volunteering. So my time is precious to me. I moved to Hernando County many years ago in 1974 to retire, relax, but I am being forced out of my home, my place of living, because of the taxes, fire taxes and assessments that they're putting on us. And it's not right. I'm looking for a job to work in Hernando County just to pay my assessments. I was wondering if Hernando County has one for me so I can pay my assessment and taxes. That is where it's getting to. It used to be HMOs was either your food or your medicine to live. Now it's getting to be taxes, assessments, and a place to live. So, the only thing I can say, to pay these assessments, it's going to be between bread on the table and living in Hernando County. And I'll be working the polls, and I'll see all of you at the polls. And I want to thank you for listening. But I am very upset that when you call county building, it's no one's here, they're on vacation, there's no one to talk to. And you wait all day long to get an answer. I've been here through every one of your elections more than once. And I'll be here if God's willing. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. I don't think it's normal practice that when we... it's like a business, you know. When you ask someone to come out and give you the price, they seldom will tell you the exact time, and we do sit around wasting our time waiting for vendors to show up. That shouldn't, however, be the case with county government, and I can't answer why someone from county staff did not return a call in a timely manner, but I think after your presentation this morning, staff understands your concerns, and I'm sure that someone from the fire district will be calling you or contacting you real soon. Before you leave, make sure that you give Mr. Radasky your phone number and when you will be available to receive a phone call. Okay? Yes, ma'am. Irma?
Good morning. On correspondence to note, number 3, Mr. McIntosh says that he's received 6 proposals, qualified firms for the master plan. You mentioned that there will be a team appointed. Are you going to appoint them personally? How many are there going to be on this team to check these people out, interview them, etc.? Is the commissioners going to appoint them? They've done that before. I just want some information.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, we're reviewing the proposals. There's 7 staff people reviewing the proposals. We'll make a recommendation to the board on selection of a consultant. As far as the committee is concerned, I was going to appoint county people to the committee, but ask the board to appoint some citizens to that committee as well.
Okay, that's what I want to know. Thank you. No, I'm not interested. Okay, somebody.
Thank you. Gentleman in the green. Your name for the record, please.
John Murphy, Orchard Park, beautiful subdivision of Spring Hill. What I'd like to talk about is DRAs. I've been working on this since last year, on and off with the Department of Public Works. And it seems to me that there's no routine maintenance scheduling of taking care of these DRAs. Perhaps the Homeowners Association should have more input in taking care of these DRAs. Perfect example is the DRA that's on Mariner Boulevard, and it shows a DRA that just simply doesn't work. That DRA was constantly filled with water for 3 or 4 weeks at a time, and there's a DRA that I believe is behind it. I don't know what road it is, but is in the same condition. If a DRA is like that and it constantly has water in it, there's something wrong with it. It has to be maintained properly. And maintenance is expensive, but until it's properly taken care of, you're going to have constant problems like these sinkholes. The water is finally going to be too heavy for the ground to support, and it's going to cave in, and it's going to cause a lot of damage, and then it's going to be more expensive to fix. So I know the Department of Public Works, they've been very busy. They got the residential road program. They had taken care of the dry lake beds, I guess, and other things that have been pushed on them. Maybe it's just too much for them to handle. I don't know. But I think some kind of plan or a steady, regular maintenance plan has to be done with these DRAs, because if we ever do get in a situation where we have a hurricane and we get too much water, we're really going to have our hands full. And I wouldn't like to see it reach that point. So that's what I wanted to say about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Murphy. Mr. Fox.
Joe Fox.
Good morning.
It's really good to be back.
Good to see you here.
Yeah. I gave each of you, so I'm not going to dwell on it, this letter that I sent to AARP, and I also gave copies to every commissioner sitting in office at that time. I have not received one reply. Since that time, to reinforce what I'm saying about senior citizens are not welcome in Hernando County. One of our lovely, lovely news media people referred to the senior citizen as parasites. Parasites that are being fed upon by people who don't pay their taxes, period. But I think it's time that we took a good long look at, and I promise you that it wouldn't be a long... Then I look at something you're talking about seniors, and I've headed this up, betrayed. Betrayed. We, 700 strong plus, attended a meeting on consolidation. We left the fairgrounds feeling comfortable that consolidation was dead, was buried. Then the next day we pick up the paper and we see it's very active. And it's gotten to the point of betrayal. This is one of the local papers. And the chief who has been made the chief, fire chief's vision draws heat. That's how much you think of this senior citizen. We had said no. And now, and anyone up there who think that I'll buy, as I was told, that the $83 and change that we now pay for fire protection will also cover us when we go EMS. It's hard to swallow. I'd like to just ask you people right now, if we're going to go that route, that you guarantee our rate for 5 years. Period. No coming back in and saying, well, we ran into the expensive. I'm looking up at the dais. Again, senior citizen. Not one senior citizen is represented here. No, you're not old enough to
Over
be a
55?
No, I'm talking about 65.
Oh.
65.
I'm getting there close, Joe.
They're not represented. I think we have to do something to recognize the senior citizen. Not give them a little accolade once in a while, but we contribute. Without the senior citizens, if they were to move out tomorrow, the dies would disappear. The whole thing would disappear. So I promise you I'd keep it to this, and I'd appreciate you reviewing it, and if I'm wrong, tell me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fox. Anyone else on this side of the room? Anyone else on this side of the room? Okay, we'll start on this side. Gentleman in the front row. Your name for the record, please. You'll have 3 minutes.
Give me a hand signal when I'm done, okay? I've never been accused of being tactful. I still have my misgivings, but I'll tell you this, and I'll tell you, I come from a family of cops. My brother was a cop, my father-in-law was a cop, and I got 2 nephews cops, so I'm pro-cop. And my impression of the sheriff's department here was outrageously, fantastically good. I never expected it to be so on the ball. If the Sheriff Mylander was running for office, I'd vote for him. I'll vote for the guy he endorses, with no questions. But I still have my misgivings about, which I did not express in it. I should have gone and talked to the sheriff in person, which, like I say, tactful I'm not. And I have misgivings about really misgivings about the SWAT teams. I like to call to your attention an incident just up in Orlando this last week or 2 ago, where you had a hostage negotiation team and a SWAT team on the scene on a hostage situation, and the negotiators were working the case down, and the SWAT guy sees something in a window, takes a shot, kills the hostage. That's my misgivings right there. In Texas, whenever I get up, I can never remember the capital of Texas, Austin, Texas. 2 years ago, you had a family dispute. No guns involved or anything. A couple of cops, the first cops on the scene, settle the whole thing real quick. And they're walking out of the place, and up comes a armored personnel carrier. The SWAT team piles out, starts shooting, puts 4 bullets in the vest of one guy, and I don't know how many the other guy got hit, but he didn't get hurt. But one of those bullets goes through and just about tears his shoulder up. Guy was critical for, I think, about 3 weeks. This is my misgivings, and I think I have a right to have them, because the SWAT teams throughout the nation have been I can give you more, but not right now. I got to go look up. But this is the way they operate. There's something wrong with the whole setup. Now, the 2 guys we had here, SWAT guys, hey, they were great guys. In fact, everybody in that class were terrific. I loved them all. Okay. Oh, one more word. I'd like to compliment Mr. Kingsley here, because last week there was a woman that had a problem with her house being kind of wrecked by an excavation, and he gave that woman a real good listen and good comments. So I would like to give him, since I know he's a school teacher, excellent video. History of American Education, from Harvard scholars to worker bees of the New World Order.
Oops.
It's a winner.
Thanks.
And while I'm at it, I'm going to leave these 2 up here. All of you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Sherman.
I have this letter from the Sheriff's Department. Now, is the two...
The time is up, sir.
It's a good letter.
Anyone else? Name for the record, please.
Good morning. My name is Annalisa Covell. I live out in Nobleton, and I, too, got a notice of the public hearing for the rate increase for our non-ad valorem for the property tax assessment for our fire increase. This has been a contention out in Nobleton and the Istata area for quite some time because the services we're going to pay for next year we're not going to receive. We're going to be funding a future fire department out of our fees basically for the entire year. I know they've made some type of conciliation with the Tri-County Volunteer Fire Department up until April, and hopefully from April until next October this will continue. The problem that I have is some of the commissioners have been going to their own areas and saying, we saved you from the consolidation effort and we saved you from paying the $83. Hernando Beach Volunteer Fire Department did not have to pay these fees, and the commissioners are saying they didn't have to go into this consolidation effort. Tri-County has been a viable fire department since 1967. It's helped everybody in the entire area out there, and I think they need some recognition, and hopefully we can continue out in this area without being slapped in the face and have the rest of the people out there that have supported this fire department actively for many, many, many years. I realize with the future there's going to be change, but they need to work with the people out in Tri-County also and not hold them and the elderly people as well as the young people that are moving in out there are having a hard time paying their assessments on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? Mr. Tonini.
My name is John Zanini. I'd like to thank you, Mr. McIntosh, for providing me with this report from the EDC. But it's not really what I was expecting. This is a lot of smoke and mirrors to me. It's loaded with words like estimated, projected, anticipated, related. But I'm looking for my word, which is documented. And but what I was looking for is a budget report, so I know what salaries they're paying and how much. But I've never been able to get that. All I get is this kind of stuff. This here is this impact model and data provided by USF Center for Economic and Management Research, programming by GTE Search Smart. Well, look, I know how that works. If I pay somebody to do something for me, I tell them I give them the material. So I'd like something more. I like something documented. I want something documented, what they're doing with my money, with our money. And I've not been able to get that. And I appreciate it if you would do that. Another thing I want to talk about is people are complaining about the mosquitoes. And it makes me think back. See, I'm an old guy, and I remember back during the Depression in Chicago in 1935, 36, you could stay out all night and never get bit by a mosquito. You know why? At the WPA, everybody was out there with a tank on their back and spraying every little puddle and every little pond, and the mosquitoes didn't have a chance. And I figure if they could control mosquitoes 70 years ago, I don't know why we can't do it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tonini. Anyone else? Mr. Pagano. Your name for the record, sir.
Al Pagano.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
I was doing some research. I read an article that there was 4 commissioners here that voted with the mines. Can you tell me the reason why 4 commissioners would vote for the mines? Is it something like the Philip Morris, we're going to get a lot of smoke, and then when people die, what are we going to do? We're going to give them some money to their families? Does anybody know anything about that? No answer, right?
What do you want to know about it?
What I want to know about it? Why would 4 commissioners vote for something like that?
Did you read any of the articles that went with that vote?
Yes, I did.
Well, then you would know why.
Why? Are they going to bring more money here?
Well, some of them believed so. If you would have read the article further, it would explain why I voted for it at that particular time, too. I also made the motion earlier in that particular meeting to vote no on that, and Commissioner Noe and I lost that one 2-3. So, and then in the subsequent vote, I voted yes, which protects the right to bring it up for a later discussion. So that's why it was 4-1, when earlier it was 2-3.
Well, why was the 3 voted for it?
You'd have to ask each one of them individually.
Well, they're here, aren't they?
Yeah, but...
I'm asking individually, why would these 3 people vote for it?
Because they believed it was right at that time.
Oh, I see.
I mean, that's why we vote.
I guess the mines voted them in, too. Is that right, Mr. Kinsley?
I don't know that.
Oh, you don't know that. Next question. Do you want me to believe what I seen Friday night? Elderly people in this county, they came here, they spent their last dollars to buy a home, and you people didn't know that Humana was taking a cop-out. They were leaving. Nobody said nothing. Now, all of a sudden, our commissioners are all there. They're going to save us. Do you honestly think they're going to do anything for us?
Humana or the commissioners? I know the commissioners are working hard to do something for us. As far as Humana, I don't know what they're
a little bit too late. Why weren't they telling the people this here months ago?
I agree.
You what?
I agree. Why weren't they telling us that?
I'd like to know something.
Mr.
And it
Chairman, may I
seems that
comment?
nobody knows nothing no more.
Mr. Chairman.
All they want is money to get paid on a Friday, and they just falling asleep here.
Humana?
Commissioner Robinson.
Mr. Pagano, just to respond to your question, no one was aware that Humana was pulling out because...
Want me to believe that?
Can I complete my sentence? Yeah. The county was not aware of it because they do not file with HCFA, the Health Care Financing Agency, until early July. That's when everybody became aware that they were pulling out, and that's the time that they must tell the federal government what their plans are for the following year, and that's part of the federal contract. So that's when everyone in Hernando County became aware that this particular Medicare HMO was moving out. And since that time, this board individually and collectively has been working and dealing with our legislative delegation, our congressional delegation. We've made calls. We are working diligently to help solve that problem. We can't solve it locally. If we could, we would have done that already. But we can be...
Somebody should have said something.
Sir,
it was in the papers that they were going to pull out.
May I finish? We can be a voice for our community, which is exactly what the board is doing. And we are doing that in concert with our Florida legislative delegation, with Congresswoman Karen Thurman, and I see one of our state reps here who has some words for us as well this morning. So we are all working for one solution, and that's solution to the problem. But if you remember at the Friday night meeting, it was also told to us by Dr. Batista that WellCare, a company that has been noted in the press as potentially coming, he did tell us all that the physicians have already lined up and signed contracts, and that there will be a transition from Humana into WellCare. He also indicated that the plans would be similar and that the financial cost would be the same. And he said that the only thing they're waiting on is licensure, and licensure is, again, through HCFA, the Healthcare Financing Agency. So as soon as that is completed, you'll have more information. So there's a lot happening to solve this problem. We'd like to see a lot more, and that's what our elected officials are working to do, sir.
Well, to answer that, it's been in the papers for months that Humana was going to pull out of the county. Nobody advised the people. Now, all of a sudden, we're all going to save somebody. We ain't going to do it because I think we're a little bit too late. Now, you mentioned Batista. What is Batista? Who's he representing?
Sir, he's one of your physicians in Spring Hill who works...
I don't care what he is. There's a lot of physicians here.
May I
He didn't make anything. He didn't do anything for the people. He said his piece and then he ran out.
Yes, but the information he gave you was that physicians that he works with in Spring Hill have signed contracts with WellCare. Until the licensure is approved by HCFA, sir, no one can tell you that WellCare will be here. That has to have their licensure, but they're doing everything to be ready as soon as the licensure is available. That's the understanding that he was trying to make sure people understood. The physicians, too, are concerned about their patients and want to know that the Medicare program, the HMO, is there for them. They realize the problems as well.
Well, let's hope everything turns out for the best.
Well, we're
The
working.
last thing I want to say is, I'm still waiting for a road to be fixed. It seems everybody's sleeping. Do you know anything about that, Mr. Radacki?
No, sir.
Do we know anything about the mosquitoes that are eating us up in the county? I've been saying this here for years. Right?
Yes.
Are we paying to have the spray done?
Mr.
Yes, you are.
We are?
Yes.
How many people are doing it for the county?
You want me to continue, sir?
No, I don't. If Mr. Pagano has questions regarding mosquito control, then he can discuss with you at the break.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you, Mr. Pagano. Anyone else? Your name for the record, please.
Peggy Cartwright, and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I have something to add to the statements I made last week on cigarette smoking. When our government put a ban on cigarette advertising, they were forced to quit the advertising, but they have now found a new method of getting their message across to you. They are the compassionate ones. For you people out there, abused women and children, Wheels on Meals. Remember, folks, they recently said in a class action suit that cigarettes are addictive and a killer. What more do you have to know to quit smoking? Stop now. The news ad on television is things are changing. How are they changing when they are still manufacturing the same product, addictive and killer? Please stop smoking, everyone. I beg of you. I lost my husband last year with emphysema. I'm telling you again, it's not a way to go. When you can't breathe, it's tough. So listen to me. Quit. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Representative Russell? Welcome to the chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. For the record, my name is State Representative David D. Russell, District 44, which is primarily Hernando County. I'm here before you good folks today just to let you know that your Hernando County legislative delegation has been working very hard and diligently on the HMO situation that's arisen in this county. We, too, have been actively seeking members of our congressional legislative delegation around the state to enlist their help in preventing this HMO crisis to continue, not only for Hernando County, which is certainly most important to us, but for everyone in the state of Florida. I got a phone call Sunday night from a friend, a lady that I've known for about 15 years. She was in tears. And she doesn't call me Representative Russell. She calls me David. And she has for 15 years. But in any event, she said, how am I going to be able to afford to buy food and pay my $400 to $500 drug bill every month? Dave, I don't know what to do. And she's in tears. I said, you know, we're working. We're doing everything possible. You know, we've talked to our congressional delegates. She said, can't the president do something? And, you know, I said, well, I haven't thought to ask the president if he could do something about it. But, you know, it is a federal issue. I want to share with you all a request I've made to the governor that went out yesterday. I did not take this request lightly, but we have a problem on our hands, and I think it needs to be addressed at every level, not just local, state, federal, executive, federal, all the way to the top. Dear Governor Bush, on December 31st, 2000, approximately 10,000 Hernando County senior citizens will lose their HMO medical coverage. It's an outrageous act of discrimination against my constituents. I respectfully request you declare a state of emergency exist, calling on President Clinton to declare a federal state of emergency, requesting an executive order for a one-year moratorium on selective interstate and intrastate cancellation of Medicaid HMO coverage. We cannot allow the HMOs to hold us hostage with the threat of being able to move out of the state if we force them into all the counties. An executive order from the president would prevent this. The threat's removed, and we call their bluff. Bottom line is, folks, We have a healthcare HMO coming into the Hernando County. I look forward to that. We're working very closely to ensure a smooth transition there. The fact of the matter is, we need to solve the problem at its roots. And I implore you, as you've been doing, continue to talk with your congresspeople, the entire delegation. I'll continue to work through the governor with the president, whatever it takes to resolve the issue. Thanks for your help. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, David. We appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address Mr. Russell.
Commissioner Novi.
Representative Russell? Thank you so much for coming to address us today. I, for one, am extremely elated that you've joined myself and the citizens in asking the governor for one more year for the term of the HMOs in Hernando County especially. And as we speak today, citizens are signing thousands of letters that I authored last week asking for that one more year. These letters are going to be delivered to the governor, and we are really pushing for him to consider that. It's such an extreme emergency. 4 weeks ago, we had petitions begin in Hernando County with the understatement that this is an emergency, and we're asking for an emergency work group. And the petitions are also addressing you. So we really appreciate the fact that you're working together with us in this, and we're very much aware of all the heavy debate in Congress and now in the Senate. So we have also asked at the forum last Friday night that citizens who have relatives in other parts of the U.S., if they contact their federal legislators asking for better legislation for prescription drugs, and hopes that that will expedite the process. So we really appreciate your support in this initiative, Representative Russell.
Thank you, Commissioner Novi. Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Novi, I couldn't agree with you more. This is a problem that exists on all levels.
Absolutely, and we certainly appreciate
and this is the way to address it on a united front. Thank you. I just want you to understand, I'm asking the governor to enlist the president's help. My concern is we have to close the door on this thing.
Absolutely.
And we cannot roll the dice with regards to risking health coverage for anybody in the state of Florida.
Absolutely.
It has to be done on a federal level. I've enlisted the help of the governor to make that happen.
Absolutely.
I have a quick question then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Kingsley?
I thought the federal government gave the governor the opportunity to do that by using that particular aspect of the Balanced Budget Act to go ahead and say that if you're going to provide service in our state, you're going to provide it for the whole state instead of selectively or discriminatorily excluding particular counties.
I can't, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
I can't speak for the governor. There is language contained within that legislation that exists. I think we need to go beyond that, Commissioner Kingsley. We have a situation that's not just this county, and certainly this county is closest to my heart. I live here. My parents live here. My kids live here.
We all live here.
We all live here. The state, the nation has a problem. I believe the whole country needs to be involved in this. If you close the door, if you try and close the door on one state, I do not want to have these HMOs migrate out of the state. And I'm saying call their bluff. If they're bluffing, let's call it. Let's shut the door. Let's enlist federal aid.
Well, from what I understood, there's only been, you can correct me if I'm wrong, 11 states that are like Florida that allow, we'll just call it cherry picking for lack of a better term, for an HMO to come in and say, well, let's go here, let's go here. And the other states, through their state legislature or governor or whatever you want to say, protect the rest of their state from having this occur. So, we all applaud what's going on, but as part of the presentation the other night, the board as a whole and the people in that particular group there were of the opinion that it probably takes longer for the federal government to act than it does at the state level sometimes, that the federal government has given Governor Bush the opportunity to do something about that. So I just thought that was...
Mr. Chairman, if I might.
Yes, and then we're going to move on.
I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman, with your indulgence. Just to address that one more time, this is a problem that exists beyond the state of Florida. Executive orders are signed on a daily basis by the President.
Well, let's hope he does it then.
And I honestly and firmly believe this is the right approach to the problem. Let's nip it in the bud. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
David, we appreciate it. And from what I've been able to understand and from what I heard at the rally the other night, there are close to 1 million seniors who have the same problem that will affect them. And something has to be done regardless of level of government. So we appreciate everyone's efforts, and hopefully we'll get some good news from the governor's office and from the president regarding this serious situation with our seniors. Anyone else wishing to comment during citizens' input? Anyone else? Third and final call. Thank you. Now we'll go to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I'll just point out that on item 7, the fee should read $52,500. Make that correction.
Any commissioner wishing to pull any of the items on the consent agenda with the correction on item 7 being $52,500? Okay, there is a question by a citizen on consent agenda item number 5. Mr. Tonini?
John Janini, maybe I'm missing something here, but I can't figure this out. You've got estimates here for this tree experts of $815, $1150, $1445, $1735. Now, Asplunda bid $815. You gave them the contract for $10,000. How come? You gave them more than what they bid.
That's Mr. Gant, the purchasing director, will be able to answer your question for you, John.
Okay, thank you.
He's right behind you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Jim Gant, Director of Purchasing and Contracts. Just to clarify on the agenda item presented before you, the $815 noted is the cumulative cost of all the categories of the trees listed on the spreadsheet, which y'all have in your packet. For instance, 12-inch, anything less than a 12-inch diameter is $75. 13 to 18 is $90, 19 to 24 is $150, so forth and so on through the category list there. As I said, their cumulative total is $815. The $10,500 or the $10,000 noted by Mr. Tonini is what we have spent so far on the program, which is that's right, Dick, isn't it? I think somewhere like $10,500 is what we spent so far. The board has spent in the pine beetle eradication program. Not what we're expecting to spend, but what we've spent so far.
Okay. Does that answer your questions, Mr. Tonini?
Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to give him my copy of the item and discuss it with him at the break, if you like.
Okay. Mr. Tonini, Mr. Radasky is going to go over it with you individually at the break. Okay?
Also, Mr. Chairman, we're preparing a report on the pine beetle infestation and eradication that we hope to have on your agenda next week, which should provide more than adequate information.
Okay, additional questions on the agenda.
Motion to approve the consent agenda with the adjustment on item 7.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. Consent agenda is approved with the correction. Correspondence to note. And I think the answer to number 3, Irma, are you satisfied with the answer on 3? Okay. Any additional comments on any of the correspondence to note? Okay. Doesn't appear to be any. What we'll do is we will recess until 10 o'clock.
well water clean.
Do you get your drinking water from a well? If so, the information in this video could keep you and your family from getting sick.
The water you drink probably comes from a well that looks like one of these wells. You count on your well to give you clean water. You and your family need clean water. Your plants and animals need clean water too. You need to take care of your well so your water stays clean. Poisons can make your well water look, smell, or taste bad. You can get sick if poisons get into the water you drink. Poisons can get into your well water through holes and cracks in the well casing. That is why you need to look at the casing on your well. Here is the casing on this well. The casing on your well probably looks like this one. What you see here is only part of the casing. The rest of it goes way down under the ground. The well water comes from way under the ground too, where you cannot see it. The water gets into your well through a pipe that is inside the casing. If the casing of your well is in good shape, it will keep poisons out of your well water. Now let's look at 3 easy ways you can check your well casing. Number 1, kneel on the ground and look all over the well casing. Do you see any holes or cracks? Number 2, push the casing. Does it move? Number 3, put your ear near the casing. Do you hear running water? If you said yes to any of these questions, get a repair person to look at your well. Do not try to fix the well yourself. Get the names of people who fix wells from your phone book. The person who showed this video to you can also tell you who to call.
Here, flip pages through the yellow pages. Let's see if we can find a well repairman. Here's one. Here, you call. Griffiths Drilling, 462-2845.
Why don't you talk to us about it? This is not quasi-judicial, simply a public hearing, and the public will have an opportunity to comment in just a couple of moments. But there is the reading of the public notice from the county administrator.
Mr. Chairman, I have before me an affidavit that indicates that in the Hernando Times on August 2nd, notice was published regarding this hearing at this time and date.
Thank you. Larry.
Mr. Chairman, as you did indicate, this is the second of the 2 required public hearings that are required for adoption of a land development regulation. In addition to that, the ordinance was reviewed by the Land Development Regulation Commission back in July, and they had recommended that the ordinance be adopted and found it not to be inconsistent with the county's comprehensive plan. The ordinance is a moratorium. It's a land use ordinance. It's a moratorium on the granting of certain land use approvals for development of well fields. It is not a water regulatory ordinance. It continues an existing ordinance in effect. The ordinance that's before you today updates the status of where we are. It recognizes the findings that have occurred in previous studies that have been conducted to date, and it also recognizes that the county is entering into an arrangement to do additional studies in order to determine the status of the water resource that exists within Hernando County. And that additional study is one that's proposed to be jointly undertaken by the county with the Water Supply Authority. The part of the package, if you'll see, is a schedule of work that's to be accomplished under that to show that the county is making progress. I think the ordinance also reflects that the original study that was done jointly with the Water Management District indicated that while there were sufficient resources to provide for water for the county during the planning horizon, it also recognized or pointed out that we didn't have as firm a handle on it as we want to have in order to adopt the final policies, procedures, and regulations to implement this issue. So consequently, we had proposed that the moratorium be extended. The board did conduct a public hearing back on July 25th. At that point in time, you adjourned to today's hearing, and it's been properly advertised for adoption today. We're recommending that you conduct a public hearing and then adopt the ordinance extending the moratorium. If there's any questions, we'd be glad to try to answer those.
Questions of staff? If not, we'll go to the public, and I notice there is a citizen who has indicated that they'd like to speak on this issue. If that citizen would come forward now. Your name for the record, sir.
John Murphy, good morning.
Good morning.
I would just would like for you to adopt this. I think it's important that we protect the quality of water in Hernando County, and I think this does it. And that's basically all I wanted to say. I think that we have to protect the quality of life here in Hernando County, and I think this is a good start. It protects the people here, and it protects the future people that will be moving into Hernando County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to comment on this at the second public hearing on the extension of the moratorium on additional well fields? Anyone else? Anyone else? Third and final call. Okay, it's back to the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Robinson.
motion for adoption of this ordinance, and I need an ordinance number.
Ordinance
Second.
number?
2013.
And we'll need a roll call vote on this, I believe.
Yes.
Is the motion seconded?
I did it.
The motion is made and seconded. Is there further discussion on the motion? If not, if the clerk will call the roll.
The roll call vote on the motion to adopt ordinance number 2013 is as follows. Commissioner Novi, District 1.
Aye.
Commissioner Robinson, District 2.
Aye.
Commissioner Mills, District 3.
Aye.
Commissioner Kingsley, District 4.
Aye.
Chairman Sullivan, District 5.
Aye.
The motion carried 5-0.
Thank you. The ordinance is adopted.
Thank you.
Thank you for your work on this issue. According to the agenda, we're supposed to have Attorney Snow here. Would someone call upstairs and see if he's just come into the building? We are moving a little ahead. He's not due until 10:20.
And it is Bruce.
Can we do the next thing?
Yes, we could.
He's standing right outside.
Is the Director of Fire Rescue Services here?
He was here earlier. Yeah, I think he's outside. I think I can address this item while we're waiting for Mr.
Okay,
Gibson.
please do.
We have solicited and received proposals to provide the medical director services for the Hernando County Fire and Rescue. The committee has decided that they would like to interview the applicants for that position, and so that is going to delay the final recommendations. This item is authority to appoint Dr. Gieselin, who is also the current medical director for the Florida Regional Medical, as the interim medical director, and he's agreed to do that at no cost. And I think the appointment is anticipated to be 30 days.
Okay.
For the record, my name is Mike Nickerson, the fire chief for Northwest Hernando Fire Department and the interim director for the Hernando County Fire Rescue District. As the administrator just alluded to, we in anticipated actually doing the selection process for the permanent medical director, but there was a request from one of the RFP doctors to do oral presentations, and after discussion with the selection committee, it was agreed that that would be in our best interest to hear. That caused a several-week delay. We did not want to get behind track on getting our licensing and Medicare and Medicaid numbers from the federal government, so therefore we're requesting that we take this interim step. The contract is a 30-day contract, and its maximum it's extendable is an additional 30 days, so we're talking about a 60-day absolute interim contract here. There's no language whatsoever for rolling this over into a permanent situation, so I just want to make sure everybody in the board understood that.
Okay, questions of the chief.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Robinson.
I really don't have any questions since I'm on the committee, but we did want to hear oral presentations from those who applied in the RFP, and this would cover the problem of medical coverage licensure to allow our people to move forward and to get their Medicare and Medicaid numbers and solve a lot of those problems to be ready to move as planned. So I would strongly recommend that we do adopt it.
Okay. Further questions of the chief or the county administrator? If not, a motion would be in order at this time.
Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Robinson.
Motion for approval of the contract for interim coverage from Dr. Gieslin.
Second.
Is a motion and a second to approve the contract before us on an interim basis for Dr. John L. Gieslin to serve as medical director until a permanent director is hired. Further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much.
Bruce, you're on, sir. We're actually running a little ahead of schedule this morning, so we appreciate
I would
starting
expect
early.
such efficiency.
Nothing ever changes, does it, Bruce?
Good morning.
Good morning. Your name for the record, please.
My name is Bruce Snow, Special Counsel to Hernando County. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Administrator, members of the Commission, Mr. County Attorney, good morning, one and all. A couple of pieces of litigation that have been ongoing that I thought it was appropriate, and in discussing it with the County Attorney, agreed that it would be appropriate to address the Commission to give you a status report. The first one involves the lawsuit of International Fabco versus Hernando County. That's a suit that Mr. Radasky, also known as Bud, for purposes of this litigation, is familiar with. He will tell you that story at an appropriate time. But this particular litigation, as I presume most of you will recall, involved the construction of a wastewater treatment plant in Hernando County that occurred 3, 4, 5 years ago. And International Fabco was the contractor that was hired by the county to construct the wastewater treatment plant. During the construction, it was determined that one of the aerators, which is the main mechanical unit of the plant, was defective. It did not meet the design criteria. As a result of that, the utility department rejected that component of the plant and instructed the contractor to replace a rather expensive piece of equipment with an appropriately specified piece of equipment. The contractor balked at those instructions, even though the instructions were appropriate to ensure that this public works project was what the taxpayers had bargained for with the taxpayer dollars that were going into it. And ultimately, the county had to effectively declare the contractor in default and replace the piece of equipment through its own forces, and then effectively deducted the cost of that piece of substituted equipment from the balance of the contractor's price. The contractor then brought a suit against the county, claiming that it had properly installed the appropriate equipment to begin with, and then the county had wrongfully declared a default. After a very extensive amount of litigation, very complex amount of litigation, and I should add it was litigation that was, from the county's perspective, was greatly facilitated by the professionalism of the Water and Sewer Department, Mr. Radasky, Kay Adams, Mark Morgan, their engineer, their various inspectors within that department, and it would be remiss of me if I did not give all of those folks credit for the incredible technical work that they did in assisting the litigation. That piece of litigation ultimately ended in front of our circuit court, a jury of our peers in Hernando County, with a jury trial. And the county prevailed at the jury trial, was able to defeat the claim of the contractor to the effect that the county had breached the contract, and approved effectively the fact that the county had withheld something over $100,000 for replacement of the equipment. A judgment was entered to that effect. Additionally, the county was able to obtain an award to recover its attorney fees in connection with the litigation. The contractor had to pay his attorney fees in connection with the litigation. The contractor, after the entry of the final judgment following the trial, filed an appeal with the 5th District Court of Appeals that is situated in Daytona Beach. We filed appellate briefs in the case, and we had oral argument before the panel of judges in about October of last year. So we've been waiting for a considerable length of time, as you can tell, for the appellate court to render a decision based on the appeal. The appeal, as was the trial, involved substantial, complex legal issues, and I think the appellate court probably spent a lot of time having to deliberate on those complex issues. I am, of course, very pleased to report that within the last 2 weeks, the county has received a favorable opinion from the 5th DCA, what lawyers refer to as a per curiam affirmed decision, wherein the appellate court affirmed the decision of the trial court. There is a 15-day period of time within which motions for rehearing are to be filed. In fact, the contractor and his surety, which is also on the hook in connection with the litigation, have filed some motions for rehearing, addressing some but not all of the issues. But the substantive issues involving the trial should now be resolved through that per curiam decision of the court. So it appears as though that major piece of litigation that we've embarked on for such a long period of time has ended successfully in the favor of the county. So I wanted to report that good news to the County Commission. Again, give those folks who were in the field doing the work the primary amount of credit in connection with the success of that litigation. I think as an important side product, a point that should be made is in connection with the fact that sometimes criticism is levied against governmental officials in connection with governmental contracts. And I've heard from time to time about, why do contractors with governmental entities, why have they been able to get change orders and not have their feet held to the fire in connection with contracts on public works projects that have been entered into with public bodies. And I think this is a good example where under the stewardship of the Board of County Commission, you had supported the decision. No, when there is a contract that obligates a contractor to do a public work and that contractor has not fulfilled his obligation, that there are times that it is important for the government to insist on the performance of that contract. And while litigation is generally not to be encouraged, I think it does show that you send a good message that you are being good stewards of the public's treasury when you have appropriate cases where contractors have not fulfilled their duty to the public by building projects that meet specifications. So again, I think that the byproduct of this litigation also is a reflection on the stewardship of the Commission over the public treasury. So I wanted to report those items to you in connection with that litigation. If there's any question involving that suit, I'd be glad, obviously, to respond to your questions.
Questions of Mr. Snow? Doesn't appear to be any, Bruce. Thank you very much for that good news.
Very good. Glad to report it, and I will keep you apprised on the outcome of the motions to for rehearing on some of the other elements. The other piece of litigation that I wanted to speak with you about involved the case of Workman Enterprises versus Hernando County. And when I say Hernando County, sometimes that includes some other entities. In this case, some of our municipal fire benefit units, or MSBUs. As, again, I think you are aware, Workman Enterprises, which is an entity that owns the a rather large warehouse manufacturing plant near the airport property, in fact was at one time part of the airport property located on US 41, brought suit to challenge the fire assessments levied by the MSBU that services that particular area. Originally it was South Central. I think that now has been merged into the East Hernando, which now has been merged into the Hernando County MSBU Fire District. This particular litigation involved the 1998 special assessment that was levied by the MSBU for fire and fire rescue services for the particular piece of property. Again, this piece of litigation was, I think, a very important piece of litigation to the county. I know the commissioners have been concerned about the appropriate types and mechanisms to be utilized in connection with your special assessments for fire services. In fact, the GSG group out of Tallahassee was engaged to develop a study, which it did present a study and report to the Commission. You had some public hearings at the fairgrounds, very heavily attended by members of the public concerning your fire assessment. So this has been an arena that has been of significant importance to you. As you are obviously aware, the Board of County Commission rejected the suggested proposal of GSG because of what you felt to be inequities to some of the homeowners and other taxpayers, or I should say special assessment payers, to be more accurate in connection with that. At any rate, Workman was challenging the special assessment and was challenging it on any number of grounds. When it really came down to it, Workman was contending that the county should have accepted the GSG study and that the county wrongfully continued to utilize the assessment mechanism that the Board of County Commission has utilized since the middle 1980s, which is your current assessment mechanism that you have again been using for your various MSBUs since about 1986. And the matter again resulted in a trial in front of the Circuit Court. We have just recently received the executed final judgment by the court on the issues tried in that case. And again, I'm very pleased to report that the court has ruled in favor of the county and has effectively upheld the validity of the special assessments levied by, in that event, the South Central Fire District, but by implication, it shows the mechanism used, the assessment mechanism, to have been an appropriate mechanism, a mechanism that falls within your legislative prerogative. Court specifically found that the assessments met the two-pronged test required for special assessments. That is that each property that is assessed must receive a special benefit resulting from the assessment. That is, it's something other than the general benefit that all properties enjoy from paying taxes, such as when you pay your ad valorem taxes, you receive police protection, you receive the services of the court, you receive the functions of county government, you receive all of those various things that are typically referred to as tax-supported aspects of government. A special assessment must be some special benefit being derived from the assessment. And the courts have determined that fire protection service and fire rescue service are indeed the types of service that specially benefit property and enhance the value of property, decrease the cost of fire insurance on property, and therefore those type properties are indeed specially benefited. The second prong of the two-prong test is that various properties that are subject to the special assessment must be equitably, and there must be some equitable distribution or apportionment of the assessment. That is, each property must pay its fair share of the cost for the delivery of the service. It shouldn't pay a disproportionate or irrational type of an assessment that would exceed the benefit that it receives. And the court has determined that your assessment methodology in that instant met those tests and has ruled in favor of the county. At this time, the plaintiff is determining whether or not they're going to file an appeal. I should add that they also filed a separate lawsuit challenging the 1999 assessments on the same basis. We also have several other pieces of litigation challenging the special assessments. Some of the manufacturers within the airport park have filed challenges to the assessment. Some of the agricultural interests have filed a separate lawsuit challenging the assessment. There's some degrees of difference in the type of challenges being made by each of those separate plaintiffs, so we'll keep you posted on the outcome of those other pieces of litigation. But I think it is very significant, again, that you have had, following a trial, the court to make a determination that the assessment methodology that you used was an appropriate assessment methodology. As you recall, when GSG was here, that very question was the question that you had to deliberate on. As you were at the fairgrounds, that very question was a question that you had to deliberate on. And again, the county commission had made legislative findings that was an appropriate assessment mechanism, and I'm glad to report that your findings have been validated by the circuit court. Again, if you have any questions on that case, I'd be glad to respond to them.
Questions? Doesn't appear to be. It appears, though, that in the last 5 or 6 cases that we've had that are of major importance to this county and the ability of this commission to legislate here, that you've been the attorney representing the county, and we've won every single one of them. That's a great record, and what do you, other than good attorney work, obviously is what you're going to respond, what else do you think is the reason why we seem to be doing so well in the courts?
Brevity is the soul of wit. That's why I received no laughs earlier this morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have had some recent successes, and certainly I don't attribute it to my efforts. As I've tried to indicate in our litigation with Fabco, the amount and volume of work, and sometime on an individual basis, I'd like to visit with each of you and show you. When we were with the court, we literally had to have dollies or doilies taking the exhibits, and we actually had some of the equipment brought into the circuit court that probably weighed a ton. Fortunately, we didn't know about the ability of the floor to support those things at that time.
I hope it was cleaned up before it was brought into the court.
Yes, that was done also. But it's a combination of the efforts of a very good team that has been put together. And I think that that team that you, as a commission collectively captain, continues to be concerned about issues that face the county. You try to make appropriate decisions and judgments, and successful litigation is generally a product of successful preparation. And if you've done things right, then if you try the case right, that should be manifest. So I think credit doesn't go to any singular thing, nor does it go to any singular individual, but instead it's the byproduct of really a team that the county has had in place for a number of years, and which is continuing even unto today.
Thank you very much, Bruce. We appreciate it.
Well, it's a pleasure, as always, to see each of you and to visit with you. And if you have any questions, I'm not far away, so please feel free to give me a call.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman?
A lob wedge away.
Mr. Radesky.
Judge Springstead was the judge that heard this in circuit court, and we went so deep into wastewater in that case that he told me in the garage about 2 weeks after that he felt like that if he ever gave up being a judge, that he may just want to go into the wastewater treatment field.
Boy, really? Okay. Thank you for that information.
Moving right along.
Okay, we're down to, oh my goodness, we're really doing well here, Chris. We're at item J. Public Works Director Charles Mixon on the policy of right-of-way maintenance by homeowners associations.
Thank you. Charles Mixon, Public Works Director. Staff is proposing a draft policy which provides two methods for homeowners group to maintain county rights-of-way. Method one is presently we're somewhat doing that with no firm policy. Method one, the homeowners group maintain certain areas of their right-of-way, and they pay for it, they do all the work and maintain it, probably at a higher level of service than we would maintain it. And then we reimburse them for the level of service that we may maintain it. Our maintenance level is we cut it every 4 to 6 weeks. We don't probably trim and edge as well as they do. So they get a partial reimbursement from us, and it works very well, and they take all the headaches, and they maintain it the way they would like. And it saves us the headaches of getting a contractor on board and monitoring that contract. But they also can get the higher level of maintenance service, but we do reimburse it from what we would normally pay. And there's 5 homeowner groups. We do that on, like I say, sort of a non-written policy. It's been done for several years before I got to the Department of Public Works. So we want to clean that up, and there's a policy here, and there's, of course, in the policy statement, there's conditions. And they would follow those conditions, get a right-of-way use permit, and follow a lot of the guidelines that we have in place. And I don't see a major problem with that, although there are several homeowner groups that don't do it, and they indicated they would like to get into this policy. So we set this policy up. There's several homeowner groups that don't get any reimbursement from us, and they would like to come and get their reimbursements. They do maintain our right-of-ways, and it's really, they just do it, and there's no guidelines, there's no right-of-way use permit, there's nothing really set up to do that. We want to clean that area up. The second method is, there again, we've done it on somewhat of a basis, and it was out there on Spring Hill Drive in the mediums. We had the homeowners group come in. We did some plannings, they did some plannings, we've done some maintenance of it. And it's worked, but it hasn't worked as well as we hoped it would be. What the homeowners group wants to do is get in a partnership with us, get in separate agreements with us, and hopefully they can come in, do a beautification on a medium, and then they can get sponsors. They can get the business group, and they said they've gotten very encouraged from the business group to come in there and help us do the maintenance, either pay for it or do the maintenance themselves. And in return, we put a small sign or plaque up saying that this was maintained by whatever homeowners group, and that sign would fit the safety guidelines. This has worked in some other communities, and they feel it can work in our community. There again, this is not the final agreement with those homeowner groups. Each one would have their own individual negotiated contract with the county. But this sets the guidelines, so they're able to do that, and then we'd bring each one of those back before the board. this policy sets the guidelines, sets it up that we can move forward with this. Because right now we really don't have any true policies on it. We've done it on sort of a case-by-case basis, and this gives them something that they can go out into their the business community and say, listen, the county has this policy. They will let you put up a sign, but you've got to help us maintain it, and then we have a business partnership with them, and then we can, I think it's a win-win situation. We can maintain or help them maintain the right-of-ways, and the extra costs will be very minimal to the county, if any. It may even be less, but we can have well-maintained right-of-ways in the selected areas.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Mixon? Commissioner Robinson.
Actually, it's not a question. I've been working with the Spring Hill beautification people for a number of months, and certainly they're looking forward to this policy because it provides an opportunity for all of your homeowners groups to take a look at where they live. And if they want to enhance that area and beautify where they live, this gives them some assistance or opportunity to work with county government. And I think what that's going to do is just make this a much more beautiful county than it is today. It's a lovely place, but it'll only enhance it and make the quality of life better for any citizens group that wants to do that. So I'm very much in favor of policy adoption. I think a lot of groups want to get involved, but we need some guidelines to help us work with them, and this would do it. So I'm very supportive of the policy.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Kingsley.
Okay. I'm also working with the Spring Hill Beautification Group. I guess maybe all of us are in our own little way. Since we can't do it as a group, it's easier to say I, when in reality it's a we in most cases here. But she brought up a good point. How come we haven't raised the bar on our participation as a county agency as far as taking care of the right-of-ways and the medians? I mean, just for an example, this morning I was at a barber shop at 6 o'clock in the morning and getting whatever hair left on my head cut. And a man in there says he lives over on Glen Haven, and there's a DRA there, and then there's some areas that are maintained. And he says the guy comes in, smashes everything down, and it moves on. Absolutely no quality control, no trimming around poles, no trimming around guide wires, everything. He says he's in these places there's 4 or 5. In the past, some people in the neighborhood would go and cut this stuff down. I guess that brings to mind 2 questions for me. Is there any quality control? Do we ever go out and assess these people we hire to cut this stuff down?
Yes, sir, we do. In fact, this year we have raised the bar. We have a trimming as part of our contract on collector roads. Before, we did not have that, so we've actually put trimming. We actually pay. I think we've spent some $100,000 more on our mowing efforts in Spring Hill. A lot of the problems are, and you're right, we do have quality control. We have to get there and inspect them. But before, back 10 years ago, when we did mowing, the county was very rural. And the rural areas, basically, you just went there and knocked it down, made sure the grass wasn't over 2 feet high. And DRAs, you just cut them and knocked them down with the bush hog. You can no longer do that in a lot of the rural areas and a lot of the areas we have. It's no longer acceptable to mow that way. And like I said, we are raising the bar, and certainly if we got a problem, we have calls on a regular basis, and we go out there, we have somebody that does an inspection. If they're not cutting it or have their blades sharp and they're not doing a good job, we'll go back. But still there's some areas that we're just doing that rural cut because we can't afford to do the trimming and edging, but we do have that on the collector roads, and we have raised that bar and are paying for that. We have a litter pickup, and we have the trimming and edging. And of course, at this time of the year, it's very hard to keep up. And but we do have a cut cycle. We've raised the cut cycle, and we do have trimming and edging. But there's a certain area they're not doing. You need to let us know, and we'll go out there and check it, and we'll get with the contractor.
Okay. So there's a certain level of incompetence we allow?
No. I mean, if they're cutting, they should be cutting and trimming. They're going out there not cutting. They cut with a bush hog. I mean, basically in a DRA. Now they can't trim an edge around a tree or something with the bush hog. I understand
that.
So there
shouldn't be too many trees in DRAs anyway,
right.
Could there be?
Well, there might be a fence post or something, but there's a standard and there's a level. Now, certainly we don't maybe trim it or keep it as nice as the homeowners would, but we have a standard.
I know that when this came before us last year, and the people who want these contracts, it looked like it was quite a bit of money to me, but it appears in some cases, and I won't say in all cases, obviously, that they're going to go out there and they're going to rush through this because they know they're going to get paid X amount of dollars, and then they can move on to like their more lucrative commercial jobs where they have to do the edging and the weed eating and all that kind of stuff. And I just want to make sure that we're getting, I guess, the bang for our buck, so to speak. I mean, it's the taxpayers who are paying for this, and they get a little. Me, get a little disappointed when you come in and see the guy just slash everything down, and then it just looks like, they really didn't do anything other than just knock down some of the weeds, and some of them didn't get cut, and, if there's a pole or a tree, as you say, everything is just left to grow up around it for a long period of time.
Well, and like I say, in some of the rural areas, or before on collector roads, that was a problem, but now we have the trimming. Of course, there again, you pay for that service, and we try to keep it to so we can save as much money as we can. But we try to get a good trimming at the beginning of the growing season, a couple of times in the middle. Actually, every other mowing cycle, we do the trimming and the litter pickup cycle. Because that's the litter pickup and the trimming is almost as expensive as the mowing.
On method 1, how do we determine how much money is the appropriate amount?
It's our call, and we know how many acres of area to be mowed, and we got contracts out there now for our mowing, so we just figure up an acre per acre cost and plug in the number of acres, and then that'd be our cost. And it's going to be that rural cut. It's not going to be the trimming and edging. What they're doing is what we would normally do.
When do we get past this rural cut? I mean, because when you look at, and once again, I went to an RPC meeting here not that long ago, and they're talking about communities and cities that are trying to address these aesthetic needs of the community as far as the medians and the right-of-ways and stuff like that. And they say, well, what's wrong with your community or city or county to raise that up a level, put some landscape bushes in there, and I understand what the Spring Hill Beautification Group is saying. We're going to have maybe a public-private partnership on these, and then they'll get a little sign that says we're taking care of this. But at the same time, when do we get out of that mode into saying we would really like this to look good, and we're going to take care of it?
Well, I mean, we have done that. It's just money. I mean, if your direction is for us to do that, we certainly can. We'll put the budget together to do that. We have, like I say, raised the level. We've got additional prison crew, and that's what they do. We maintain the one out I-75 and 50, the new Gateway project. We have to maintain that. It's fairly labor intensive. We've got.
I'm not blaming you personally.
I know. I say it's a policy decision. It's money. I think we have been raising the level slowly, and this may hopefully put it to the next level. But it's just a question of dollars and money. Like I said, we have put money into it. We have put crews into it. It's just, and I think we're seeing some progress out there, and certainly we need to move into that better cut and better maintenance. But it's a dollar thing.
And we don't want to, and it would be in my intention to say, well, if you're going to keep it at a higher level, then maybe we shouldn't assess you at the rural level. We'll maybe not at this level that they're paying, but there must be something where we say, we're excited about you wanting to take a better care of your median and put some plantings in there to make the community look better. But if we sit there and say, well, it doesn't mean anything to us in dollars and cents, then we're not exactly backing them wholeheartedly, in my opinion. Or is that?
Well, some of them get nothing, and some of them get very little, so I think this will help them. I mean, there's several out there that we don't give any reimbursement to. So I think at this level, at least we're giving them something back, and certainly if they want to negotiate or feel that's necessary, we can come back to the board. But policy now, we pay them what we normally would maintain.
Well, I would
our collector roads, we do trim an edge, so that one of these is a collector road, and we do trim an edge, so they may get a little bit more than the rural standards. And a lot of these are the collector roads, and we have raised the bar on that, so they would get some of that money back.
See, in my point of view, it's not isolated. Like if it happens to be in Ridge Manor, or if it happens to be on North Cliff, it's still part of the overall community. So to me, if we had of all these streets, I'm not saying make each median look like a park, but at the same time, I'm saying they're still our responsibility. And if we just go in there and let them turn into weeds and whatnot, I don't think we're really assuming that responsibility in the correct manner. I guess you're right when we're saying it's a matter of policy that needs to be addressed. But I'm not sure if we've had enough Are you asking for approval of this policy today or just presenting it?
Well, either way, when we would put it out there, we can, we hadn't had a lot of workshops and discussion. Here's the first shot at it. If you don't feel comfortable once more, or you can approve the policy. And of course, it just sets up the guidelines that we can bring back each one of these negotiated agreements back before you. So
I know some communities have contacted me, and they would prefer to have a little more input into this. Maybe not just with you, but come, to, like, I hesitate to say an agenda. I guess I would say an agendized sort of item where they can have their input on the record, and then we can discuss maybe higher levels or appropriate levels, as they may or may not be deemed by the rest of the people on the board.
Commissioner Mills?
Well, if we have higher levels or what we would deem appropriate levels and on an agenda item, then I would certainly hope that we would have the prices that we would have to pay for such levels of service. But I, like the others that have already spoken, have been contacted by the Spring Hill Beautification Committee, and I was quite impressed with them in their organization and the amount of work that they have done to stay organized and to bring all of these concerns to the board and to DPW. And I have great faith in their ability to really perk up the different areas in the county. So I don't have a problem at all with what we're suggesting here.
Additional comment? Additional comment. I know that there are several individuals who are in the room representing various sections of the county. If you would like to comment on the proposed policy, or whether you would like to see a greater workshop or a greater effort on the Commission's part of possibly having a workshop in this area, this would be a golden opportunity for you to come forward and to make those comments. And there is one gentleman who has requested an opportunity to speak, so if you would come forward at this time. And anyone else who would like to come forward and make comment.
John Murphy, I'm president of Orchard Park Homeowners Association.
That's one of the more beautiful subdivisions in Spring Hill, isn't it?
Right, exactly. And we want to keep it that way. And I think it would be a perfect opportunity to have a workshop on this with probably the other subdivisions also, I'm sure, would want to get in on this. There's certain things like DRAs. We have 9 DRAs, and we'd like to keep them a little better under control as far as cutting the grass. There's like on some DRAs, there's signs that are posted there that I'm sure that the tractors can't cut close to the signs. They got to be careful. There's mailboxes that they have to go around and things like that, where we could get in there and do a better job with the edging and cutting, keeping the grass out of the street, because the way it's been raining now, the last month or so, I mean, it doesn't take much for the grass to grow 2 feet. I mean, with the amount of rainfall, especially we've had in July, and I'm sure that Department of Public Works has their hands full with it this time of the year of just trying to keep up. So I think with homeowners organizations helping out, I think take a little pressure off to the Department of Public Works. I think we could handle our subdivisions and maybe help out and make things look a lot better. And I think a workshop would be a great idea, though.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And before we go on to the next citizen, Charles, I do want to mention to you, I know in the last couple of years, I used to nag you all the time about having a litter pickup before we brought in the mowers. They used to annoy the H out of me, and I've noticed a significant improvement in that area, so I think the point has finally been made. But let me get to some of our other citizens. Lady in the striped shirt, if you would give us your name, please, when you come forward. When you come forward, please. Good morning.
I needed a backup. The Spring Hill Beautification
Your
Commission.
name again for the record?
Pardon me?
Your name for the record?
Oh, Louise Andruski.
Thank you.
Okay. The committee has been working hard. As you know, we did workshops at the home of one of our members to understand exactly where we were going, and as a result, we requested that a policy be entered into the records of Hernando County. We're astounded at this very short time that we've come up with this idea. We had asked if the county could afford seed money, so to speak, to put grass down on the medians in Spring Hill Drive up to Deltona, and then put the trees in, just trees. And then we went to some business, so we have 8 lined up already who want to sponsor a median where they will pay $200 up front and then continue to pay $75 a month for the maintenance of the median, where they pay for the water, pay for someone to keep it trimmed more often than the county would be able to do, and just keep it going great. So that's happening, and you're looking at me. Go ahead,
I'm Collins Connor, and I realize normally you all know me from the newspaper. I'm not here as a representative of the paper. I'm here as a citizen of Spring Hill and a member of the Beautification Committee. I apologize that we missed the beginning of the discussion. We thought it was an 11 o'clock agenda item.
We're a little ahead of schedule.
So you're speedy this morning, of all days. I don't know what's been discussed. I would like to suggest that even this proposal that we came up with on business sponsorships, I don't think it's I don't know that it's a perfect answer. Actually, I know it's not a perfect answer because there's no such thing. I think that it's a work in progress, and I believe communities all over the state or the country have struggled with this idea of how to keep the rights-of-way attractive and appealing and reflective of the community. I think a workshop's a wonderful idea. I do know that we have a lot of businesses in Spring Hill who, in a very few phone calls, have endorsed this plan. I believe you, Mr. McIntosh, got a copy of the Chamber of Commerce endorsement. I think it's an exciting plan. I don't think it's the only plan. I think there are lots of ways that the county can go about doing this, but we hope that you'll work with us and come up with a plan that everybody can.
The overall plan is also infectious because as the county spends its time taking care of right-of-ways and the medians and beautifying it, the older residences along those routes will then begin to realize, well, gee, a little bit of paint here and a little bit of trim work here will make all the difference in the world. And so ultimately, it will have a great effect on the community.
I agree. But we appreciate your time and your consideration, and if we can answer any questions about our little proposal, we'll be happy to.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Peggy?
Peggy Cartwright, you're really into my baby this morning. Because for all the years that I've been coming up here, I've been pounding every commission to do something about Spring Hill, and I don't get it across. We had a neighborhood improvement committee with Sal Ficco. You know him up here. And we tried our darndest. I was going to say another word right now, and I know you're not allowed, okay? But we did try our darndest to get things going. I'm still doing it on my own. I can't get it across up here. Spring Hill needs help. I don't care now who does it, but I want somebody to get in on this and really work on it. To me, it's terrible out there. I want something done. I don't care who takes this up. I'm not getting it across to you people. 11 years I've been talking. It's like nobody hears. Come on, fellas, listen. Thank you.
Irma?
Irma Carr, these are just for county roads. Is that correct? Not state. What J.D. Baldwin and her group and all the volunteers did right down the middle of the interstate, where the interstate and 50 connect and 98 connect. It looks great. I just wish we could do that everywhere, because I love plants and flowers and trees, and I'm an avid gardener. But I'm going to throw a cog in the wheel, folks. We can't do it at the community center because it's a state and government road. What about liability? Is there any possibility the county could suffer liability because they sort of get involved with this? I'm in favor of planting flowers and trees up and down every single road, but I was just wondering about that. And we already have a committee on property owners that does mowing. It does it of the empty lots, because all of them cannot be taken care of by code enforcement. It takes too long. But sometimes it's very difficult to collect the few pennies that we ask for keeping up these empty lots, as well as some people's property while they're gone for 3 and 4 months at a time. Thank you.
Thank you. Legal representative may want to respond to her question regarding liability on the part of the county or any beautification efforts that take place.
Certainly. As I'm sure all of you have anticipated the answer, obviously the county is going to be one of those deep pockets. It's going to be sued if somebody unfortunately does themselves damage. So yes, there is potential liability. However, one of the questions, and it's relatively minimal, obviously the county does not have them as employees, so it comes under a different standard of care. The likelihood of success is relatively low. We may even be covered under our existing insurance policies. The administrator, unfortunately, is not here. He may know the answer to that question. If not, certainly our insurance gurus in-house would be able to tell us. That may be a relatively painless and low-cost rider we can add to a policy.
Well, in addition to that, you don't have to leave Hernando County terribly far when you see other communities doing the same thing that we're trying to establish. Mm-hmm. And somehow liability concerns were never a major concern. The main concern is to beautify the community. And this is a very litigious society, and people can sue over anything. But as we learned prior to this subject, the county has been very successful at fighting off lawsuits when we can show we're doing it for the benefit of the community, and it's a legislative decision and not an arbitrary one. So, though I understand Irma's concern about liability, I think it's minimal at this point.
Yeah, and as Commissioner Mills wanted to point out, and it's a correct statement, there is a part of this policy that goes, and it's number 10 of the list, where there is a release and an indemnification clause that is in there that still doesn't prevent us from being sued, Commissioner. And that's the minimal nature that I was talking about. We will get sued. We will have to expend staff time and lawyer time in fighting those claims. The likelihood of success is low.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Kingsley.
Of course, if we were never sued, we wouldn't need you.
You got it.
But this would be for Irma. Irma and the board, and we all, once again, it was all of us, participated in the thing out there at 75 too. So there are county dollars involved in that. But going along with something that I said earlier when we were talking about this, there is no reason that we can't, whether it's for HMOs or whatever it may be, there's no reason we can't request of the state for them to raise this, as Charles was saying, the county's doing incrementally to raise the level of their participation too, whether the county has to partner along with them or we bring them down here to partner with a particular community. But there's no reason we shouldn't be able to ask the state to increase their participation too. I mean, historically communities don't. They just assume, well, like as you said, that well, that's a state, there's nothing we can do. But that's just not true. And maybe you need to ask us to help you with that in a more specific manner.
Okay, additional comment from anyone in the room? Yes, sir. Your name for the record, please.
Morning. My name is Jim Erickson. I'm here representing as chairman of Seven Hills Advisory Committee. I'm also here as representing my wife's chairman of the waterfall entrance thing. Her and I and another couple, we do all the maintenance on the waterfall landscaping entrance, the weeding and the mowing and the sprinklers. I'm also here as a member of the Spring Hill Beautification Committee, and my wife and I, along with Carol, we do what we can to weed those things, and I was out there at Mr. Robinson in the mud planting those. So I think you could say I have a great deal of interest in beautification of the Spring Hill area. And I think this is a good step forward. I worked with Charles on Mrs. Robinson's commission right after we cut the trees down on Spring Hill Drive and got that big fuss going. And did get a little experimental mediums going there that didn't work out too well. But we all know Hernando County is growing tremendously, and we put forth effort to make it grow. But it's much more important in my mind, I think many of the commissioners are now agreeing that we maintain the quality of Hernando County. And this beautification is very important. I think it's a good step that we not only pay what they would cost to roughly mow it, but add a little bit to it for this more manicured look like we have in Seven Hills. And Chris, I appreciate your speech there. That was good. Get right in there. Thank you. And so I'm in favor of all this and more. Remember, we have to have more. It's a continually growing process, and you got to stay right on it. So thank you.
Would you like the workshop, sir?
Yes, I certainly would. Okay. If it would not delay this thing. Because all these ones I mentioned are needing some financial help right away, and we don't want to delay that help. If we could get it started now and then still have a workshop, would be my preference.
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Additional comment? Additional comment? Okay, we'll bring it back to the board. We've heard from our citizens on this. Nancy?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a motion that we adopt the policy and certainly also schedule the workshop so that we don't hold any of the citizen groups up. And then at the workshop, if we want to review this policy and tweak it a bit, we certainly could do that. But if we get the policy in place now, we can start the working relationship and then do the workshop. Because I think there's a lot that our citizens would like to see happen in the area of beautification and the aesthetics of the community, and I think that would be a good time to take that up.
Great.
Second.
There is a second to the motion to approve this policy as presented, and then to schedule as soon as possible a workshop with all of the various groups to come up with a...
I have a question then.
Commissioner...
I guess it would be for Charles. When we're talking about adopting a policy, it seems historically when there's a policy, then it's like, I don't know, what's some really difficult task? If somebody doesn't fit in exactly or doesn't, you know, how do, you know, it's like walking with cement boots to try to deviate from policy, so to speak. So I hesitate in supporting having the policy implemented at this particular moment. I mean, I'm in favor of what we're talking about, obviously, and adamantly, but at the same time, are you planning on getting with these people in the next 2 weeks or so and starting to distribute money or something like that?
No, I think, and I understand your concern, I think what this does sets up the policy that we can then approach the people and the homeowners and say, listen, this is the deal, or this is what we have to help you out, and this is what we can do for you. And then certainly each one of those can be brought back before the board, and even at the workshop we can say, you know, we've met with these homeowners groups and this is what they want, this is what we can agree to based upon our policy. Then you can look at that and say, well, this one we think you should do this, or we agree with you. Certainly on method 2, every one of those comes back before you. So by setting this policy doesn't mean we'll start dispersing money. We've got to negotiate with them and look at some numbers and work with them, and then we can bring those back. In fact, even on method 1, we can bring every one of those back to you to feel comfortable, at least bring some of the outlines to you on that workshop. So I think by setting up a policy, it just gives us the guidance to then get to the point where we need to bring it back before you.
So I guess that's sort of what my concern was. Then everybody who wants to apply then will have to go to you, and then you're going to have to come to us for each one that's...
Well, method 1, they don't have to. Method 1, it sets the guidelines. Method 2, it's pretty much brings it back before the board. Method 2 is just, this is the guidelines.
But just like Mr. Erickson said, on method 1, then it's like, and you mentioned it, it'd be like the rural rates or the whatever, and And in some cases, maybe it should be at a different rate.
Well, it's the rate that we would normally pay. And in a collector road, we pay a higher rate in the Spring Hill area. So we could look at that. And that would be the rate we would normally pay in the Spring Hill area.
Well, anything that deviates from policy then becomes an exception, and they have to apply for it.
Right, and we can bring it back before the board.
Well, my point would be, wouldn't it be easier to wait and kind of get all that stuff worked into the policy so we don't have to come back and have a whole bunch of amendments or exceptions?
Well, you're always probably going to have an exception. I'm sure that somebody's going to not agree with us somewhere along the line, have an exception, but it's really up to the board what you want to do. Certainly the policy gives enough latitude that we can work with them, and I think most of them will have it worked out and agree to. There might be some with exceptions, and I think that's always going to happen.
Well, I guess that just creates a dilemma for me. I would like the policy to go forward, but I would also like to have the workshop first. So I guess I have to work on that myself.
Commissioner Robinson.
I just would like to comment. I think putting the policy in place is really not a bad thing to do. I certainly wouldn't support it if it was. But I think what you learn from it is in the process of applying the policy, like so many others, if you find that there are some issues out there, glitches, so to speak, I think that's what we can address at the workshop, and then we could certainly refine that policy to meet those unusual circumstances that may have occurred. This is actually a time where you put a policy in place, and then by application, you do get the feedback that would tell you whether or not you need to adjust your policy. So it's really a good way to go, so that when we have the workshop, we'll have a lot of feedback if there's any issue in the policy that we need to adjust. So it'll give us some time for those communications with homeowners groups to occur. So I think it's really an okay thing to do, and then we'll have the feedback too.
It also helps organizations like the one that Ms. Andruski is in, to go to businesses and say, look, the county has adopted this policy. The county's serious about beautification, and so therefore we would like you to join with the county in beautifying Spring Hill. And if they have something in their hand to show rather than just good wishes, it makes the difference also. There is a motion and a second to approve the policy and to schedule a workshop on this area. Is there further discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, homeowners groups. And we'll notify all of you when we are able to look at our calendars and find when's a good time and date for our workshop. Okay? Next item is item K, which is Social Services Coordinator Gene Rags, amendment to fiscal year 99-2000 Medicaid budget.
Good morning. For the record, Jean Rags, Social Services Coordinator. I come before you today for consideration the state-mandated program. We're dealing with another state mandate for Medicaid reimbursements for hospitals and nursing homes has exceeded the expenditures that the Agency for Healthcare Administration quoted the Hernando County earlier in 1999-2000. Their estimated expenditures for us were $581,900 for this fiscal year. They base these expenditures on our last 4 invoices of fiscal year 98-99, and then add a projected increase of each of those areas for hospital invoices and for nursing home invoices. Their estimated expenditure, our expenditures, was lower than what they had, or higher than what they had anticipated. We actually put $600,000 in the budget for 99-2000. We've exceeded that amount. We are projecting that, based on our monthly average of $69,700 that we spend in Medicaid reimbursements, that we need an additional $235,000 added to this budget to cover us for the fiscal year 99-2000. And if you have any questions about that, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions of the board?
I just have one. Did the agency give us any explanation as to why the estimation of cost was lower than what we see? Do they have a rationale for that, or anything unusual happening out there that they could use as a guideline as to why the numbers are higher than anticipated?
No, and I've talked to two different people at ACA, asking them if they could give us maybe a better projection so that we can plan for our budgets. Actually, 2 years ago, they estimated at $800,000, and we only spent $500,000. Next year, we're estimated at $775,000. I expect, based on this year, that we'll probably make that amount, maybe even more. It's very difficult to determine how many people are going to be using Medicaid in hospitals and nursing homes, that the county holds a responsibility for a portion of that. Even though we may be in the best of times, healthcare usually is in the worst of times. We continue to see other efforts. We spend money for the doctor's clinic, for patients to get services there so they don't end up in the hospital or nursing home. We are also mandated to have the Healthcare Responsibility Act, where we pay for services outside of this county for people that need hospitalization. This is another mandate to cover another population that needs the support from federal, state, and county agencies. So there's nothing that tells us, gives us any really good projections as to how much we're going to pay each year or how much less we may pay. Right now there's nothing that gives us any indication how many more people will end up in hospitals or how many more people will end up in nursing homes.
It's true. It fluctuates depending on use. There are years in our budget where we had $500,000 and only spent $150,000. It's like a roll of the dice. You never know till you get to the end of the year, as far as I can say. But thank you.
That's very true, and I can tell you that this budget will be coming under my department. It will be scrutinized. The clerk's office has actually done a very good job in scrutinizing this over the years. For this year, they had received $702,000 in billing, and they were actually able to eliminate $75,884 from that billing that was not properly billed to Hernando County. So we were able to eliminate that. They've done a great job in doing that over each year that I've looked at. We're hoping to be able to do more of that in my department by actually going out to these places and looking to see what they're doing and verifying the information that they're sending us.
Good. Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Robinson.
Motion to approve the request.
I'll second.
I don't think we have a choice in the matter.
There is a motion to approve, in addition to the Medicaid account, of $235,000 and to take the money from reserve from contingencies. Additional comment on the motion?